Hey friends, in today's video, I'm going to discuss the crafting system in Destiny 2. It has been a hot topic on Twitter, and I want to address all sides of it as well as give some constructive criticism and talk about future implications of the crafting system. So normally when I make a video like this, it's done in a live commentary format as it is right now. The difference is the last time I did a live commentary format video without a visual aid, people took one thing I said without listening to the 30 seconds of prefacing an idea and pretty much just ran with it in the comment section and didn't listen to any of the video. So to make the video easier to listen to, I am going to put a visual aid on screen, aka a PowerPoint, going back to grade school right now. I don't have any animations here, nothing entertaining, just pure, hard PowerPoint slides. So in the background gameplay, live Destiny 2, at the Enclave for crafting, if it's relevant in the conversation, let's get started. So let's talk about the cons first and the pros second. In its current implementation, that's a very important thing. When people talk about pros and cons on Twitter, they talk about it in a vacuum as if it's the perfect crafting system when we have to talk about it in its current implementation. So let's get started with it's at odds with the looter shooter genre. A lot of people played Destiny originally in Destiny 1 because it is a looter shooter. And so if there's crafting, it potentially ruins the eternal chase for a god roll. Then the activities are reworked to drip feed crafting materials in progress. This can lead to frustration in trying to obtain a full weapon pattern from artificial time gates, and then there might be no/little forward progress outside of the seasonal activity. So how does this translate in Destiny 2? If we go to our triumphs, our quest tab right here and look at the seasonal quest, you're going to see that I get this repute reward that I can use to upgrade a table at the helm that will eventually help me progress towards red box frames to eventually progress towards the craftable weapon. So for example, this Brigand's Law sidearm, to get the red box, I need to play the seasonal activity, do specific triumphs, then I need to get the red box, then I need to craft it. And so this random drop version of Brigand's Law doesn't really do anything for me if I ultimately want to use a crafted version, because the crafted version has enhanced perks. And that brings us to the next part of the slide, which is that enhanced perks ruin the value of random rolls and adept weapons. So now there's also more material items to obtain/keep track of that was recently mitigated because Bungie made this nice little object at the Relic Conduit that you can put in your inventory that makes it very easy to identify how much resonant element you have. I need to say that before this update, Bungie had planned to have a bunch of materials to collect all around the solar system, so it seemed like a more complex system that they scrapped at the last minute to maybe make it more accessible, but ended up muddying its identity so much that we don't know what the hell it is right now or what's it trying to be. So now there's less incentive to recomplete activities once you have a crafted version of a weapon. Can't deny that. And then finally, leveling up a weapon is extremely boring. Oftentimes going to Shuro Chi is more efficient for your time than just switching to it at the end of an activity to get progress. Let's talk about the pros. It curbs RNG and sometimes has a guaranteed path to specific loot acquisition. I think one example that I can do with this is Found Verdict Time Lost versus my shotgun. So if I want to compete in PvP and want a shotgun that is very, very good, Found Verdict is the best, but it's not craftable. So if I wanted to get a Found Verdict, I have to farm spoils, which could take multiple hours, then get a Master Atheon clear, which for some groups is difficult, and I might get a roll like this, but I could also spend hundreds of hours getting garbage rolls that are not better than the craftable lightweight. And I do think the playstyle is different between an aggressive frame and a lightweight frame, but the difference is the Without Remorse has an end goal. I can spend my one pity red box per week from the helm to eventually work towards a craftable Without Remorse. It is a tangible difference in my shotgunning gameplay from maybe having a bad Found Verdict that just sucks to having something that can get pretty consistent one-hit kills. It's the same for this. So that is primarily why I like crafting. It's sometimes a guaranteed path to specific loot acquisition. Unfortunately, there is, or maybe fortunately, there's less incentive to recomplete, and I put the modifier word, boring activities, because some of the seasonal activities are pretty boring. And this is the part where I'm glad I'm doing it in live commentary and can go on a slightly side tangent to say the seasonal offerings, we have one of the worst I've ever seen in Expedition and one of the best I've seen in Catch Crash, which almost reminds me of the old menagerie system. So you have both, the bad and the good. But there's less incentive to do both of them once you obtain all of the craftable stuff. And for a new player, I would just recommend that you start the season about 5 weeks late, 5 to 8 weeks late, because at that point, the helm offerings will open up and you'll have more guaranteed paths to getting red box weapons to ultimately craft your weapon. So that brings us to the next bullet point, which is new player-friendly gearing path with less FOMO, since these craftable weapons seem to stick around. You also have a cosmetic flex for its crafted date, kill counter, and memento shader. Crafted weapons can save on vault space. Often what I do is I don't worry about the enhanced perk. I look at an artifact, look at the specific types of weapons, and let's say it's like an auto rifle, right? I don't keep any auto rifles in my vault, but there are some craftable auto rifles that I could craft if I need, for example, a solar auto rifle for a specific Grandmaster Nightfall. I appreciate that one vault space more than an enhanced perk for a weapon type that I don't really care to use. And then finally, it's easier to test new builds and ideas. So if I want to create a Scorch build with Caliban's hand, I could just create a BXR Battler with enhanced Scorch right away and test it. And if I don't like it, I can delete it and appreciate the vault space, because typically I have more materials than I ever will use being an endgame player. What makes a good crafting system? This is to preface future slides here. I think it's 3 tenets. It creates a purpose to engage with all content in the game. There is a deterministic endpoint or bad luck protection, and it enables specific build crafting for a cost. I am going to talk about Phantasy Star Online 2 Classic, and to put some visuals to the game, this is the crafting system. You walk up to the gunsmith, you affix augments, which means you sacrifice guns with perks on them into another ultimate gun. You have a list of all these perks that have different percentages of a perk going through, and then right before you finalize it, you have a augmentation aid, a percent booster, to push that 10% to maybe a 55%. But in a lot of recipes, you could get that to 100%. And in this case, I'm going to send it, it's going to fail, and all of those fodder items I have to reobtain. So this is the complex system in Phantasy Star. Don't worry if you're not understanding all the odds and ends. I will explain that in the PowerPoint. So, how does it create a purpose to engage with all content? Ultimate perks could be created by sacrificing weapons acquired from different activities. Each activity, enemy, and world location has a generic and specific loot table. Perks can transfer to other guns, but have a percent chance of failing. You improve this chance by obtaining endgame percent boosters, which I just showed you, using the same weapon or same perk for a small bonus, and/or a time-gated, guaranteed transfer pass. Endgame viable weapons can be found through activities without crafting, but the best in slot typically requires huge investments for usually very small bonuses, and specific build crafting can be costly. Moving on, the other tenets, deterministic endpoint and bad luck protection. Some games have item tradings which can guarantee you reaching the end because you just save up enough currency and trade another player. You can also use alternate crafting recipes to achieve the same end result, but with different ingredients. This can be a spectrum from very cheap and sometimes random, or very expensive but guaranteed, and then I'm going to show you an example video here. It enables specific build crafting for a cost. You can become an unkillable tank or some sort of vampire glass cannon. But at the end of the day, you get exactly what you want at the cost of time and currency investment. If you self-farm all these materials, expect to do every activity in the game, which is that first tenet of creates a purpose to engage with all the content. Random gear drops can still contribute to endgame builds, by the way. Sometimes you could have something drop in the wild that is already what you would have crafted in the first place. Sometimes even better because you're on a budget. So an example of this would be the maid tank, aka this waifu can tank so much damage. I'm not going to show you all of the video, but I'm just going to show that I had to go through all different parts of the game to obtain all these different set bonuses and perks that improve defense. And ultimately it culminated in my braver character dying in like 3 hits, but then my maid tank character surviving a barrage of attacks and even soloing a boss, albeit it took 47 minutes to kill this boss because I have no attack power. But the point is, this niche build could be created and there was an end path to achieving said endgame build. And in Destiny, the same thing could happen. So, moving on. The toothpaste is out of the tube. We cannot go back. So, talking about how Destiny crafting should have launched isn't really that important, but I want to talk about it anyway because someone in the comment section is already typing something very angry about how it should have launched, so I will humor you for just a sec. So, let's go with those 3 tenets. Create a purpose to engage with all content. First of all, there should be no enhanced perks. Why? Because at the very top, the enhanced perks ruin the value of random rolls and adepts. Then I think a menagerie system, but expanded. If y'all remember the menagerie, you collect runes around the solar system and then combine it for a single drop of a weapon. You obtain materials from activity completions and enemy kills. So when I say an origin material right here, let's use the Iron Banner Reese Walker shotgun as an example. The origin material you get for an Iron Banner completion sometimes. A sub-material could be you kill a servitor on Nessus. Another sub-material could be, I don't know, complete a game of Gambit. And then you turn that into the gunsmith for a single Reese Walker. Then you use an endgame material to guarantee perks. You get this endgame material for doing raids or triumphs or speedruns, something like that. And just for player engagement metrics, it could be a ridiculous amount of materials to not only get a Reese Walker with Iron Reach, but to get a Reese Walker with a range masterwork, with quick draw, with rifled barrel, with accurized rounds, could be a ridiculous amount, but at the very least, there is an end in sight. And I think that pretty much covers 2. If they need to cap the resource weekly, similar to the way that they do the seasonal drip feed for player engagement reasons, I could live with that compromise. And then, how does this enable specific build crafting? Well, if you wanted something like a Scorch build, you could craft an Incandescent and Demolitionist BXR Battler with the exact min-max stats. And so to achieve this, there's 2 paths. It's the random drop, you either get it for doing Dares of Eternity, or a ton of investment into the crafting system stated up above. And so what crafting enables is min-maxing a build that would otherwise not be competitive because you can't practically get all the random facets of the build. You just can't. It's not probable. So finally, this brings us to the heart of the video, which is how to salvage the current Destiny crafting system. I think this is going to require one or many of the following options, starting with rip the band-aid off, remove enhanced perks. It's worth the slight frustration now to circumvent a future economy incentive problem, because once you have the enhanced crafted weapon, there's no point of adepts and there's no point in revisiting the activity. Allow for random drops of a craftable weapon to upgrade into enhanced perks, same with adepts. So I could take this Brigand's Law and upgrade it to an enhanced bolt shot, even though it's a random roll, by feeding enhanced materials into it. Look at these 2 swords right here. This is a crafted Eager Edge, other half, and this is a regular Eager Edge, other half, that I randomly got to drop. Since enhanced Eager Edge effectively does nothing, there's really no reason to enhance it, but let's say for a second that it did. Then what I would do is I would take this sword to the gunsmith or enclave or whatever, feed some expensive materials in it, and upgrade it. Saves me the need to get the crafting red box, but at least I get the random roll with enhanced perks. And again, I know that's not a pretty system, but it's salvaging what we have for now. And the same could be said for adept weapons. 3. A new method of obtaining red borders. You could tie it to triumphs or something like that. 4. Red box drops accelerate in the seasonal activity, but is not exclusive, so you can still make forward progress by doing what you like playing Crucible. It's not going to be as fast, but at least it's something. Leveling progression should be faster in core activities, faster than Shirochi. So yeah, just play your Crucible and Strikes instead of spending all day shooting Thrall and Shirochi. 6. Random drops have exclusive cosmetics, shinies you could say. Some people might not like this idea, but it does provide a reason to go the random roll route, is just to have a flex. Imagine a little charm or something on this Brigand's Law that you can flex to your friends to say, oh, y'all had to craft your weapon, you're just not as good as me. And then you have your little charm right here. Food for thought. But that's where I'm at with the crafting system in Destiny 2. I hope today's video was presented well. Share this video around if you see people arguing about the crafting system, and hopefully this sheds light on both perspectives and maybe where we can compromise and how Bungie could realistically move forward. Thanks everybody. I will see you in the next one.